Yeah, we did it. We did the impossible. We showed up roughly on time. Hey guys, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. Today was a really weird day because we had we had two storms. We talked about checking the weather. Spectrum shit the bed, and then there was also a literal thunderstorm going over. So we were worried about like the Wisp. If it was going to crap out, it would be during a thunderstorm, and also, the thing we're most scared of is Spectrum shitting the bed, which it totally did. And we started Weird Things a little bit late, kind of calling our shot, where it's like, wouldn't it be great if with three completely separate internet connections, one of them could totally shit the bed and we could go live with the redundant other two still having the failover. So it was sort of this daredevil moment of safety where it's like, we're so safe that even when the initial option fails, we could go live with a backup on there, which man, I'm so stoked.
Which it did. Yeah.
So, everything seemed to go off without a hitch, right?
Yeah. I mean, based on what I was able to tell, it looked great.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, no, I'm very excited. This was this is the in the repeating many worlds universe. Today was the branch where everything goes exactly as planned, even in the face of abject failure. So that was pretty good.
I mean, you put a lot of time and effort into it, and I think that everybody has kind of watched the trial and errors of how everything gets put together. But there's no denying hard work paying off, and that's exactly what you've seen, and who knows whether or not the situation with Spectrum is the new normal, in which case to run a streaming service, a studio that streams X amount of hours a day, you got to have it up at all times. So
yeah, well, and I think
that's it.
The big
Never
lesson
ready.
was whatever the problem is, it seems to be something that builds up over time and gets released by completely detaching all equipment from it and then reattaching it. So at least knowing that we have a third internet to sort of cover that if we had to do that live during a super high pressure event is pretty, I don't know, pretty, what is the emotion? Comforting?
Relief?
Relaxing?
Relief?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unterrifying? What's the opposite of being terrified all the time?
It was like having a safety net.
Confidence inducing.
Confident. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you were flying without a safety net and you were like some circus dude
Go on.
Yeah.
doing a flip,
Yeah. A flip. What kind of flip?
it was a super triple danger flip.
The triple danger classic flip.
Exactly. And it's dangerous. And everybody knows you're the
Everybody
only one
knows it.
that can do that triple danger flip.
That triple danger. Danger's my middle name.
Yeah. Wouldn't you want to have the net? It's dangerous.
Did you mentioned on Weird Things that you wrapped up Dark Side of the Ring. Was there any other content that you've been watching that you've been particularly appreciative of?
I mean, really, we've been burning through Community, so there's been a lot of Community in the house lately. And other than that, What We Do in the Shadows, I think, is the only show that we're watching week to week these days. But that continues to be top notch. So pumped to see that it got a third season, and we actually turned Darren Kitchen onto it over the weekend. We got him to watch the first 2 episodes, and he was head over heels.
Well, and man, it's one of those things where it's like, don't get me wrong. Of course, all anybody ever wants is for them to fall in love with a show that only gets better over time. But hot damn, is the second season better than the first? Like the introduction of yet another new supernatural creature to explore. This last episode was awesome.
Oh yeah, it's so well done. It's just so great, and the acting on it's fantastic. It's fun to see, when you watch the first episode again, it's funny to see how the dynamics of the characters have kind of changed. That like Nandor in the pilot is a lot less likable. I think they realized that like there has to be this line of likability with him to really kind of unlock the character, that he is like this kind of doofy guy and not really mean, because he starts the series off very mean toward Guillermo.
Well, as the one straight, he starts off as the straight vampire, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like, no, I'm here and scary and I'm bad and I'm mean to my assistant and I'm what you think of when you think of a vampire, and everyone else is slightly wacky, but not me. I am the moral center of this. But then you suddenly realize that it's the house itself that is the moral center, and everyone else can afford to get a little wacky in every direction.
Well, yeah, and you know, Nadja and Laszlo's relationship is a lot more frayed when we find them in the pilot, and I think they've also realized that, like, oh no, like Nadja and Laszlo, like the fact that they care for each other matters, and it
their
matters.
Marriage and kinship and partnership needs to be one of those like unbreakable rules. Like nobody's gonna have a good time if they're for reals fighting. Like we like seeing them sass each other, but they're a unit.
And to understand what that means for vampires, like what does a vampire fight mean? Like can it go on for 30 years? And they're like, yeah, I'll tell you what, we've certainly let our emotions get the best of us. Anyway, moving on. Like, But that's really kind of the strength of the show, is that they've done such a great job of exploring that kind of like sci-fi horror. Like the best versions of all these stories are the ones that really explore humanity through these lenses, and even the idea of like it is this workplace comedy, like asshole boss versus put upon employee. Like you know, it's the reason why they had to make Michael Scott more
Likeable.
of a lovable guy than David Brent was in the British version of The Office. Like in the British version of The Office, you're like, yeah, I like the fact that this guy's goofy. I cringe laugh whenever I see him embarrassing himself. But if the end of the story was him just, you know, sucking, you know, his life just being awful, like you'd be like, haha, whatever. I don't really care. I care about these other people. And I think that's just a reality of episodic television.
There's a couple of really good think pieces where they talk about like major character changes that they fixed over the course of The Office, including Andy. You know, like he was basically, so they fixed Michael Scott, and it's interesting to see the specific ways that they did it. Like they changed his hairstyle to be look less to emphasize the thinning hair and the greasiness or whatever, and instead made him a little more attractive. They also shifted him, you know, to, instead of just, you know, punching downward constantly, make him a little bit more desperate. And then likewise with Andy, you know, Andy was just an awful caricature of privilege. And then they realized, oh wait, we have to quote unquote send him away for anger management. And then he comes back as, you know, constantly trying to make it doofus, Michael 2.0.
Yeah.
So somebody sent us this Instagram of Nandor in character promoting a friend's band. I didn't.
Greetings. This is Nandor the Relentless. I have been contacted through the ether by one of the most exciting punk bands I have never heard of, Bootblacks. They have a new album coming out on October the 9th. That album is called... What's the album called again, Guillermo? Thin Skies. So what you should do is you should go and buy it. And if it's not available in the local record store, that's because the record store has closed down. Because you started listening to everything on Spotify, and then they didn't have any customers, and then they had to close down. So shame on you for that. And you can still listen to it on Spotify, I'm sure. And trust me, you won't regret it.
It's pretty great.
It's amazing. Yeah, the character work on that show is really just second to none. There's not anybody that isn't just hitting it out of the park, which is so fun to see. You have such talented actors that come on and do guest roles, and it's like it's so great to see them kind of just have to jump in and play along with these like fully formed, totally like bulletproof characters.
Well, and man, is it getting to feel more like a an Avengers roster? Like now, spoilers for season 2. You know, now that in the background we know at any moment we might see zombie, what's his name, or Ghost Jeff, or Doll Nadja, or I mean, it's like I love when there are so many. I guess the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the best parallel, where it's like you've had so many adventures that all of them are just in the background now, and at any moment one of them could pop up and be the solution or a surprise or a complication to any problem. Including they've set up. May I remind you that they definitely established that the Baron is not entirely as dead as you would think.
What?
After they, right as they bury the Baron, they're like, one more drink, and then they have him pour blood into the charred face of him, and then you see his eyes just barely start to glow as they throw him in the grave and they cover everything up.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that there's such an amazing world that they've built, which really kind of reinforces the characters. But to be totally honest, it's the only show I could think of, especially a comedy, that I could imagine them spinning off like a movie version. That I would be totally locked in for What We Do in the Shadows, the series, the movie,
or even just like the werewolves get their own movie, the zombies get their own movie, the ghosts get their own movie, like whatever. Like I'm down for a What We Do in the Shadows cinematic universe.
I guess the thing is that they've set up such a rich universe that I could imagine, like it doesn't really take a lot to go from like, the reason why you have a hard time making a television show into a movie is that you constantly are exploring things and blowing them off, right? So how do you do the big version, like the Simpsons movie? It's like, what's the Simpsons plot? We've done a billion plots. We've figured out every dynamic that can happen between all of these characters. How do we do a fresh thing, let alone a gigantic thing?
And in the case of The Simpsons, the answers was, let's show Bart's dick. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
What?
They literally did that. They showed Bart's dick on the movie.
How did they work that in? And it was PG, or what was it?
I think it was PG-13, but a cartoon wangers,
Yeah,
I think that
like-
falls.
So what they did for an extended sequence of naked skateboarding. They did the Austin Powers thing of conveniently placed objects, always obscuring his crotch, just long enough for you to kind of get bored of them hiding it. And then he hits a topiary where everything is hidden except for it's just his wang.
Oh, that's really funny.
But it's like with What We Do in the Shadows, you could imagine, there's a plot that involves the ghosts and the zombies and the werewolves, and now our vampires find themselves at the center of it, and you could do something with a larger budget, where it's like, even now they're only really able to do like one crazy thing an episode, and they do it great. It looks fantastic, but it's like they can't do a werewolf episode where there's also a zombie or a ghost or the puppet.
But it can all come together for a movie.
But if you did a big thing, you could imagine like, okay, yeah, dial all that up to 11 and then get the larger budget. And you're like, yeah, I would spend my money to watch 2.5 or 2 hours of that adventure.
I did absolutely adore the subtlety of the fact that, spoiler alert for last week's episode, fast forward, the fact that the entirety of the time that the troll was alive, they were blurring out his giant monster dong.
Yeah.
And then the moment he turned to a statue, they just showed his giant monster
yeah.
dong.
Because a stone dick is not
fine.
yeah,
You know,
whatever. That's like a statue.
Oh, that was. And what's
Like
funny?
you're not gonna blur out the statue of David or whatever, right? So this guy just happens to have a big old wang.
It's a big deal that Penny, our 16-year-old, who's less comfortable with saucy material like that, that this story has engaged her to this level where she feels comfortable watching it with the whole family. Like as recently as like 2 years ago, that moment, and any kind of hint of a wanger or whatever, she would just very loudly be like, "What? Oh my God, this is the inappropriate." And now she's just like, the comedy engine has overridden the propriety engine.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy for that.
And she she really thrives on the absurdity, like things that have absurdity, and it has good storyline and absurdity, and it just is, it's hilarious. So good stuff.
Yeah, continues to be good. Did you watch last night's Rick and Morty?
I did. So I guess that's the other show that I'm watching week to week is Rick and Morty, which I guess is there one more episode, one or two more episodes in this half season?
We're rounding the corner. Man, first 2 episodes of the post break, I got to admit, were just too much wearing the writer's roominess on their sleeve. There was a couple of moments of that, both in this episode and the previous one, but the last 2 episodes I felt have been a true return to form.
Yeah, I didn't quite have the critiques of the first 2, but I could understand where they come from. Like the train one specifically was very, yeah, it was its own. It was a show that very much was enjoying the fact that it was a show. But no, the last one was great. I mean, I just think that show is so well put together. It's just so funny. The Vat of Acid episode is just. Have you watched any of the explain the episode things?
No, but I think I will, because what happened is last week I watched the episode and we talked about it and I liked it. I liked it a lot, right? Then they released that just 5-minute segment of the reset button. And watching that in isolation makes you realize just how brilliantly crafted that whole thing is. And then rewatching it with Josie last night, because we were waiting, because they wait till middle of the night to put the episode out. We rewatched it, knowing that one perfectly crafted 5-minute storytelling chunk was coming, made me focus on what a flex and a celebratory dance everything around it is. Like the intentional badness of the acid vat idea and the torturing and all that stuff. Torturing of the audience, I mean, by continuing the bit long after it ceases to be funny. It's a great episode. And what I did not notice until my second viewing is at the very, very end, when he gets Morty to admit that his ideas are dumb and they go back to their reality, you see in the crowd the girl he falls in love with, and you realize that she never had a name, but she shows up just long enough to turn around and leave. It's great, really great.
Well, a few things that I'm sure you'll enjoy, because they are well, I mean, the first thing we talked about on, I think it was Weird Things last week, but that entire the Alive sequence, that was all because the episode was 5 minutes short, and the director came up with this thing, and they were like, yeah, no, just go do it. And so he did, but that was all not in the initial thing. I assume that there was just it was just Morty falls in love and then Jerry's an idiot, but that whole super dark peak was only because they were 5 minutes short.
Oh my God. Because I thought everything else was just a flex because they knew they had that 5-minute segment. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah, you were telling me that last night, right? So,
Yeah.
how funny.
And then the other thing, and this is where you'll appreciate from the Harmontown thing, but Brandon Johnson, who was a regular on Harmontown and is the math teacher's voice, he had the initial idea for the vat of acid because he was joking about how many people in the 80s died falling into vats of acid, and then opined that it's probably just because it's a very cinematic death that like people just kept dying in vats of acid in 80s movies because of the production value, which the writers' room found so funny that they wrote an entire episode around it.
It's so good. Last night's episode was particularly good. Oh, doggone. What was great about it was, again, it's a little bit weird to be watching Rick and Morty with your 12-year-old daughter, but all indications seem to be that she understands that, you know, darkness is a contrast knob on comedy, and that something somewhat funny with real stakes suddenly becomes very, very funny. Or
Very,
whatever,
very
right?
funny, yeah.
And so we had the weird moment of Bonnie walking in just in time for the post-credit scenes. Credits end, and Bonnie walks in, and it's planets only. Oh my God,
Yeah.
this ozone hole. I didn't make it, but it needs to be filled. Planets only, or whatever. Like the task immediately handed to a 45-year-old man and his 12-year-old daughter of explaining to mom what she just walked into.
Why
and
there's
why
a phone
all of
sex
it.
parody. Yeah.
Nice one,
it was
Brian.
amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Bonnie, how did you experience that?
That's Rick and Morty, man. I don't really think that the kids should be watching it.
Oh,
It
so
just-
this kind of there's a line in the sand, and mom's on one side and dad's on the other when it comes to whether
Mom
the kids.
has been very tolerant of Dad's constant insistence that no, just this one, just this one bit, just this one episode, just this one thing.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but also, I mean,
The idea that he fucked a planet.
I don't know. As a parent, it's so weird. You kind of want to like you kind of want to act like sex doesn't exist, but then, but the internet does, so you can't really do that. So you're just
Yeah.
kind of like, this is a thing. And so if you can be a little bit salacious, like planets only, then you
I mean, like if that's where
friendly.
you're getting, if that's where the line is being pushed, at least it's in
Absurdist territory.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not something super graphic or even like titillating. It's like it is
right?
it is an explanation of it for absurd effect.
Right. And then, like, I don't know. I mean, like, I remember watching Betamax videos, like, back in, like, you go down to the store, the video store, and you just get the
Mhm.
movie. And then every now and then my dad would be like, oh, because he didn't know, like, a scene was, like, super weird. And I think
Yeah.
Roadhouse might have had something really odd in there, like I remember Roadhouse had like a very sexual.
Roadhouse was something that you wanted initially, like either by the box art or by reputation, you wanted to watch, and your dad was like, I don't know about that.
No, my dad got it, and we watched it.
Oh, he got it.
Wait,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so we watched it, and they were just like, there was one scene, he was just like, oh, that's just dirty or something. I don't know.
Well, and
Just
that,
like-
that is one of the bummers
Yeah.
is because as a parent, you don't think a lot about the words you're saying, but the kids hear them very, very hard. I remember,
right.
I think we've talked about this on the air, but there was some Saturday Night Live sketch where Joe Montana talks about how he's going to be upstairs masturbating. And my mom...
Maybe the greatest sketch ever written for a non-actor.
Yes.
Like
so good.
Like that's like one of those, like you watch that and you realize who Joe Montana was at the time that he's starring on there, knowing that they have to write around this guy, like just him staring straight ahead and saying like, that's okay, I'll just be upstairs masturbating. And just bring the house down.
Well, and what's interesting is this is where memories diverge, and my mom has no memory of having said this and insists that it's not something she would say. But my memory of that moment is, I think it was Jay asking, "What does that mean?" because he was younger than me, and her saying like, "Oh, it means touching your private parts," and the part because this is spoiler alert, when I was 12 and just figuring out that you could touch your private parts.
Yeah.
And I also found the porn tapes. And so this was a subject of high interest to me. So I listened very acutely to this next part, and the version I remember involved some kind of dismissive language. The way I remember it was, it's like rubbing your genitals, and it's wrong. And then maybe generously, what she meant was, it's wrong that I have to talk about this in the middle of a comedy show.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
it's wrong that they're putting this out there on Saturday Night Live. But what I heard is that the act itself was wrong, which made me very confused and ashamed for many years to come. But it's I don't know. I would rather have more at bats of those awkward moments, so that we can more quickly make clear to our kids, what we perceive acceptable attitudes of acceptance with sexuality should be.
So you had an opportunity to talk about fucking planets.
Fucking a planet, yeah.
Yeah. Like,
No.
where did you come down? Like, is Josie all hot for planets now? Is
Oh
that
my
a
God.
thing?
I mean, she joined Greenpeace. That's all I know.
Hell
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Did we, have we talked about Sasquatch yet?
Sack squatch.
No, I don't believe we have.
This was bubbling up on
What
Twitter.
is Sasquatch?
Well, on Twitter, people were suggesting that maybe we should book Sasquatch on Weird Things, but I think it'd be better to book Sasquatch live. A lot of people don't believe in Sasquatch. They don't think he's real, but here he is playing one more time. By the way, audio listeners, it's exactly what you would imagine right now.
Yeah, it's that squatch.
I love all this loop shit. That to me is real magic.
Oh, totally.
Imagine a little bit of dancing like you're Ron Swanson or Duke Silver. His back is turned long enough for him to position the saxophone all the way through the hole in the front of the Sasquatch mask. Oh, good. People in the chat are shouting, "Book this man/creature." Yeah, that's Sasquatch.
That is a great gimmick. What is his social media of choice, I wonder?
Well, let's see. He's got 80.
It seems awkwardly boxed on YouTube, but maybe
Yeah.
that is it.
Hold on, let me pause this. Looks like he's got 81,000 subscribers on YouTube. I think people linked me to his Instagram on there. If I go to Google and I just search
Sasquatch.
Squatch. There you go. It immediately comes up with YouTube as first. Facebook, 240,000 likes.
Facebook might be it. That formatting
I'm
might
definitely
be Facebook
logged
friendly.
in as Bryce, so I'm gonna switch that camera over. I'm definitely on Facebook as somebody who is not me. His stuff is on Spotify. Sasquatch Primate Social Utah Arts Alliance.
Oh wow.
Sasquatch.
So I guess he's got live gigs.
Yeah. He's live at the Metro
Or at
Gallery.
least he did.
Oh, this
I don't
is
know whether or
great.
not his June show is going to go on. Coronavirus affecting everybody.
Oh my God.
Sasquatch's gigs now a question.
Well, does it cross over? Like, is he worried about infection?
Yeah, maybe he's immune.
No.
He's like, that's
Yeah,
a
who
human
knows?
problem.
Who knows? Yeah.
CountryRebel.com has a 1962 song, You Don't Know Me, on saxophone is the story. Oh, yeah, there we go. So looks like Campfire on Instagram, Sasquatch. Yeah, here we go. No, it looks like he has a moderate following on Instagram.
Maybe he's just blowing up.
Yeah, maybe we got there just in time. Count us as fans. Sasquatch, hit us up. Just burn 5 pine cones and
Yeah.
and eat a beaver and then and pray.
Eat a beaver, huh?
Yeah.
Somebody said planets only.
Beavers only.
What else is going on, man? We have any entertainment news?
Oh, I don't know. Probably somewhere.
Well, that's fun. I
Yeah.
am making a little piggy bank.
You want me to pan down? People were asking if you were churning butter. Here, I'm gonna pan
I'm
the
not
camera down.
churning butter, but I've got a Clazy pig going.
Churners only.
Churners. Oh my God. I bet you there is probably something. So one might see a fatabulous.
I want you to know that your
Piggy.
tits are the only thing that is in focus.
Oh, okay. All right, working on the piggy. And some little wings on the side.
Oh, you're doing a Pegasus for the Ice Cream Social Gang! Oh, that's fantastic!
So we're working on it. Brian had suggested this a while ago. And I was just like, yeah, I'll totally make one. And then I felt like I needed to make one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
After being a total dick.
oh. You wanted to make something that looks fabulous?
All right, we do have some entertainment news. This actually swept social media. Brian, I don't know if either you or Bonnie are Kardashian literate. Are you familiar with the Kardashian clan?
I'm peripherally aware. We've baked Kardashianism into the lore of the Modern Rogue. Am I right? Is she for reals going to law school? Like she's gonna become a lawyer?
Kim Kardashian has said that she is indeed going to law school to of course follow in the footsteps of her father,
dad. Yep.
Robert Kardashian, who represented
Part of
O.J.
the
Simpson.
OJ, yeah.
The dream team, as it were. But Khloe Kardashian, if I say Khloe Kardashian, are you aware of?
That's not the one who did the Pepsi ad that went so poorly.
No, that was the young. There's the Kardashians.
Mhm.
These are the kids of Kris Jenner, then Kris Kardashian, and then there are the kids that she had with then oh geez, I don't even want to do the name thing, but with
yeah.
Jenner, with Olympian Jenner. And
wait, hold on. I know. Hold on. Somebody in
No,
my mind around
I
it?
know that I don't know the current name.
Is there a new
And that's
name?
why no, Caitlin.
Caitlin.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All I can think of.
Caitlin,
What's funny is
Nee Bruce.
Brain, please summon name of Caitlyn Jenner. All Brain summons. She ran over someone.
What?
And then I'm
Yeah.
just like, nope, not that. I want the name. Yeah, but she ran over someone.
Ran over?
Yeah.
Like, with
yeah,
intention?
Yeah.
So anyway, that was the one you're
Cars, they're
thinking of is Kendall
wacky.
Jenner.
Got it. Kendall Jenner. Got it.
Khloe Kardashian is one of the daughters of the elder Kardashian, the now deceased Kardashian, paterfamilias. But a television star now for over a decade on that reality show, and this weekend debuted a bit of a new look, and that is controversial.
Shall I Google a thing?
I think you can.
Okay. I guess I'll go to news.
You can probably Google Khloe Kardashian new face, and you'll probably find
Oh.
something.
KHCHLOE.
No, everything has the K. KHLOE KARDASHIAN.
Okay. Also a little thingy on the thingy. Okay. Here's what I am seeing. Who is Kirby Jenner?
Here, let me find.
they're
you a
calling
link
out
and I'll
her
send it to
new
you.
face, is what this says.
Yeah.
Is maybe I don't know the old face well enough.
Well,
Well, you're gonna look at the old face there in the.
old face.
Let me see if I can find
Ah,
something.
here we go. I gotta refresh it. Turn off the old ad blocker. All right. So is this the new face or the old face? I'm
That
seeing?
is the old face.
Okay.
Oh,
She always had a little bit more of
Change
a
that.
pronounced jaw, but that's the new face.
That's a fairly different face.
My goodness, she changed her jaw, I guess.
So she, what is that? Is that a thing? By the way, I believe what we're engaging in now is called celebrity gossip. So she had a more square jawline, and she appears to have had it shaved. And
I guess so. I mean, if I'm not really a master of plastic surgery, but I guess that's what it seems like. Unless
the
there's
thought
just
of it is
other...
clearly upsetting to Bonnie.
Oh my god, it just makes me sick to think anybody hurting themselves.
I mean, you're talking to a guy who broke enough cinder blocks over his head for pay that if stacked up, they would be taller than the Empire State Building.
I thought that was pretty dumb. I think I told you that.
Yeah. I
Um,
don't know. Pro athletes, they do that.
yeah, you're a pro athlete, Brian. Oh my god. Well, she looks cute.
Yeah, so that's the
So what's
big the big
controversial?
thing is whether or not she is too transformed, whether or not that is a bad thing.
Man, I guess we have to play the game of objectively asking which of these two photos is more attractive, like, on a swipe right, swipe left kind of way.
I mean, my thing would be more, she became a celebrity for 10 years on that television show. So it's not that necessarily one is more attractive than the other, but one is certainly much more famous than the other one.
Yeah.
Like one of them is somebody that people would know immediately. But then again, some people just hate parts of their lives and hate, especially when it comes to physical appearances. And it doesn't really matter whether or not, in fact, that might be a negative that she's famous for having a face that she might not be comfortable with.
Yeah, you know what? That's interesting because I think there's a temptation to believe like, well, then they got money and felt the need to change their face to serve the Hollywood system. Whereas meanwhile, I know a number of people who have always hated one aspect of themselves and then, had the means to do something about it, sometimes surgically. And that's an interesting thing because there are people in very close orbits in our life who spent money to surgically fix something about their bodies that they didn't like. And it was really weird to see family members who, or not family members, friends of the family who couldn't handle it and changed the way they interacted with them. So I wouldn't be surprised if, all of this celebrity back talking gossip stuff is kind of a version of that same impulse.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot that goes into it, and you've already touched on a few of them: fame, money. The idea, even the concept of, if I don't like my face, I can change it because I have enough money to do it.
Right.
Like even that general conceit is something that I think dredges up elements of frustration and is obviously very polarizing. Because on one hand, it's like, oh, well, if you got it, flaunt it, honey, go do whatever you want. And then on the other hand, it's like, no, you're setting a bad example, or you're
communicating
you're
the
feeding
idea
into these bad ideas, or it's obscene wealth at its grossest.
Mm-hmm. I mentioned a couple, like last week or something, we're talking about TV or movies that were like, oh, movies we're ashamed of liking. And then I found out new reasons why I should be ashamed of liking Payback. But then I kind of vaguely only remember Payback. I was like, I've been wanting
Why were you ashamed of Payback?
Besides the star, Mel Gibson.
Yeah, no, we talked about the star.
Okay,
like,
that's right.
Shit, I forgot about that. There's so many more reasons to be annoyed at actors that one just kind of got lost in the shuffle.
Sure.
But then, anyways, so one of the fans, sorry, I can't remember who. If you're in chat, hi, thank you. I read the audiobook.
Oh, suggested that there's a whole series and they're quite good.
Right.
And so you don't.
Oh my God. It is just brutal with like none of the like comedy or anything. Like I remember not that there was a lot of comedy in Payback.
There was a fair bit of comedy. Like it was a dark comedy. It was like, It was just like kind of in that John Wick style where it's just like, well, you did the thing, so I'm going to have to fuck up your shit. And that's just an immovable object. And let's make as many jokes as we can along the way.
So, anyways, there's not any comedy in
It's
it.
just brutal.
It's brutal. It is brutal. And then, like, there was some, like, these, like on the show, I mean, just the sense of, like, in almost like some kind of weird integrity, like, oh, no, you owe me my money. I've got to get that money.
Oh, that's right.
You know what I mean?
That was the ongoing joke.
Yeah.
Is people keep trying to overpay him.
Right.
He's like, no, it's only this amount, and it's about the principle of the thing.
And that really stuck out to me, right?
Yeah.
Like that principle of the thing. And then that element was a little bit there, but really not the driving force, and had no sense of humor about it or anything. And so anyways, but in order to set it up for the series, he goes, now I have to have the money so I can change my face with a plastic surgeon. And I thought it was so funny. And you were talking about 80s conceits where everybody was dying in like vats of
acid. Yeah.
But 80s too, like people would just change their face, And honestly, I was thinking, well, how changed can you look? I mean, like you could do a little shave here, a little nose thing there, but you don't really look that different. Except apparently you can look really, really different. Like that looks like a completely different person.
The place where Hollywood went too far is the idea that, and now not to make it all about Knight Rider again,
but it's all about Knight Rider,
they sort of convey that Michael Knight was just given an off-the-shelf face, and there's a bad guy who's later encountered named Garth Knight, I guess, who also was given that same off-the-shelf face, which is why they're both played by the same person. Yeah, so it's weird to grow up as a kid thinking that's a thing, and it's definitely not.
That you can, I do remember the movie Face Off as a kid watching that, which obviously has a face switching conceit at the heart of it, and remembering that like, oh no, they're really overproving why these people are, or how these people are switching faces. Like they were shaving bones and like adding things to make their stature. It's like, or at least in this montage, I don't know how long it goes
Sure.
as time dilates in your memories, but like, I do remember being like, oh, it's just not, because when you're a kid, you're like, bibbity bobbity boo. You're in each other's bodies
Yeah.
now.
If-
Go.
If it was in the 1970s, all they'd need to do is like, we made this mask. Now you're that other person. But then in
Yeah.
the 90s, they were like, whoa, guys, that's fucked up and not true. Let's explain in detail about facial bone structure, teeth length, and all that stuff.
Oh my God.
Well, yeah, and I don't know actually offhand who is the combination of the like body types of Nick Cage and John Travolta. But I remember that they certainly, at least in my mind, they portrayed John Travolta as like a bigger bruiser compared to a shorter, more spry Nick Cage.
Yeah, he seemed Nick Cage, I think, was passing for the spry, more elven, body archetype, whereas Travolta was more of a kind of a meathead bruiser.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah. I mean, I don't know. Has there been a face swapping thing since then? Has there been a
Since
greater
then?
foray
I mean, yeah,
into
like-
face swapping?
There's been I mean, Westworld has
Yeah.
just weeks ago played with that. Not, I mean, in its own Westworldy kind of way, but it's like, oh, I get it. It's a person pretending to be another person. But then they also got the wiggle room of like, but they're an evolved version of that person. So it's like, well,
Yeah.
what I really want to see is one actor mocking another actor. That's all I ever want to see.
Well, I guess Mission Impossible, certainly that's as hot as it's ever been, and that is always reliant on people ripping off
Oh yeah.
their face to reveal that they are actually somebody else. That's
Mhm.
like a huge part of that lore.
That's
Yeah,
true.
the man, more recent. Because if I want to go back in time, I think of weird stuff like Inner Space. Remember that whole thread
Mhm.
where part of being made tiny gave you the power to transform people's bodies to look like other people's bodies for some reason?
Yeah, that
Do you
one
not
went some
remember that?
places. That went someplace. Inner Space. I think Inner Space kind of holds up. Like
Oh,
that,
it's great. It's great. In fact, we watched it, I think 3 years ago when we were in France. We were there for that Google thing.
Oh my
and
God.
I think we watched it dubbed in French and loved it from beginning to end. It's great. And definitely holds up.
In French.
And part of it is, man, I'd hate to say it, when I was a kid, it was about Dennis Quaid being cool, but now it's like fucking Martin Short. I can understand why somebody might not be a fan of over-the-top physical comedy. That motherfucker is a goddamn genius of what he's playing on that. The physicality
Oh my God,
of
yeah.
everything, it is amazing.
No, Martin Short, I think in general, physical comedy, I think gets you only get so many days in the sun with it. Like in
Mhm.
terms of the public. Like at a certain point, people, even if you are very obviously next level amazing at it, like it is the most pure art in that like you can go to anywhere in the world and beyond boundaries, you can be a star because you can move your arms and legs and face like that. Like it never lasts. You always wind up getting crapped on
I guess-
because it's like too easy or it's the same thing when really it's like as
Well-
hard as coming up with great lines to say or deliveries.
I mean, I guess that's kind of, is that where most of the world is at with Jim Carrey right now? Where it's like the pendulum
Yes.
swung very far in like, this man is a supernatural gift to comedy. And then I don't know how
no,
much of
I
it
think
is-
we're actually on the other side where now people are reappreciating because he went over a decade without relying on it. Like he was somebody that a lot of his acting work past then were like it. He wasn't doing rubber face, crazy antics in like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and even
Right.
then, that was like 15 years ago. Maybe,
And I guess
maybe a little bit less.
I never watched the number 23. The conceit was too far for me to
Uh,
buy a ticket on.
I watched my last movie in the theater was Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic
Oh,
the
yeah.
Hedgehog.
How was he on
but
that?
that was an example of him being on the other side, where a lot of the positive reviews were like, oh, it was really fun to see Jim Carrey just kind of ham it up as a big physical presence again. That was something that was like enjoyable, which you would not have heard in the past, and people are like, whatever.
I think
Do not go in there. We heard it already.
I-
Boo.
I think the last time I saw Jim Carrey in the theater would have been when he was riffing on Chris Angel, and I was too busy just being giddy that he was doing a Chris Angel thing than anything else.
The Brain Rapist.
The brain is that what they? Is that,
Oh,
I forgot about that.
That was his.
That's
Oh my god,
right.
that movie!
Yeah.
We should go back and rewatch that as Magic people, because that was a very weird project where it's like, let's take this very niche thing and the 12 people wide that consist of it, and let's assume, just for sake of argument, that the whole world cares as much as those 12 people do, and let's make this movie. Because I watched that movie with like 8 of my Magic friends, and it might have been the funniest experience in a movie theater I've ever had in my entire life. Now, having said that, we were the only 8 people in the movie theater,
Yeah.
and we were all experienced magicians who caught every single subtle dig and reference on there. It was fucking great.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my
Of
God.
course, we're talking about the incredible Burt Wonderstone, which
Oh,
in
yeah.
itself is 7 years old.
Wow.
But that was actually fairly early on. John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein are big screenwriters. They wrote Horrible Bosses, Spider-Man Homecoming, and I think the other the sequel to the Spider-Man movie. But they are they got a lot of hits. The incredible Burt Wonderstone not among them.
Yeah.
Well,
Which is too bad. Like, I remember one of the bits was they were what's his name? I shouldn't call him Crazy Face. Why am I blanking on the name of one of the greatest actors of our generation, who's the co-star that makes the charity that we're looking at right now? God damn it.
Jerry
Makes the
Lewis.
charity?
No, freaking, God damn it! In Fargo, he.
Steve Buscemi.
Yes, thank you, Steve Buscemi.
Oh.
When Steve Buscemi puts the charity together, and there's that conclusion that he comes to that poor people don't need magic kits; they need food.
Yeah.
God,
Oh.
why did I blank on Steve Buscemi's name? That's terrible. I'm
It's so
terrible.
funny. I don't know. I gave like art kits to the kids that they had plenty of food kits.
Plenty of food?
And I was like, man, these kids aren't in school. They need something to do too. Put little art kits together.
I'll tell you what though, the writers on this, they also did Game Night.
Oh,
Or no,
which
sorry,
was
no,
great.
he directed Game Night.
Ah.
So he did not write it, but he directed it. John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein, like that team.
I've rewatched Game Night a couple of times because that's one that Josie dug when we shared it with her, and man, that holds up. That's a tight movie. I don't know if I'm ever going to label it quite on the level of Clue, but I have the feeling that it's pretty timeless of a conceit that'll last for a long time.
Yeah,
and
I
the
think
deliveries were great from everybody.
the fun of Game Night is more in its unfolding than it is in you realizing that it actually is like structurally super complex. Like, but it unfolds funnier and more interesting than so much.
And Jesse Plemons low key steals the show on a second and third viewing. It's the
Oh,
Jesse
yeah.
Plemons show the entire time.
God.
Yeah.
Well, he has, we were talking about that with Donnelly, that in his role in that thing, that there are just these in really, really, really good comedies, you just have these cleanup hitter roles where it's like everything else is going to get set up where you just know that when they show up, they're there to just like knock all this tension out of the park, and Plemons like obviously is not doing it in a bombastic way, but is just undeniable.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, you just realized we're already up on it. We started almost on time. We're going to finish almost on time. Pretty soon, happy hour will be an actual hour long. Just you wait. Thank you to everybody who shows up, man. It seems like, we got a real nice email from Liz saying how much she's enjoying our stuff. That was really cool.
Absolutely. Happy to do it, Liz.
Aw.
Yeah. Thank you. And everybody who supports us. Patreon. That's a thing.